Hey guys, my name's Crystal Kenny, and I'm in love with creating. All things artistic and imagination involved. I'm an American girl who chased her creative dreams all the way to Paris, France, making a living using photography. This podcast takes you inside the stories of all the artsy folks I've met along the way and gives you that extra push to discover your creative gifts. The desire to create is deeply inside each and every one of us, and I give you the tools and inspiration to find a new way of living a more creative life. This is La Vie Creative, the podcast. Today on the show, I speak with Mundey Young. Mundey is originally from America, but she came to France like so many of us and became an international lifestyle and business coach. Now, if you're someone who sometimes feels a little ungrounded, you like a lot of things, you don't know what direction to go in, this episode is for you. Mundey gives the best advice, and I hope you guys really enjoy it. So I'm here with Mundey Young, and we met through another person on the podcast. Actually, Rebecca Devaney introduced us. That's the thing about Paris is like it's a village. Everyone knows everybody, and you connect. So welcome to the show, Mundey.
Hey, Crystal. Thank you. Happy to be here.
It's great to have you here. And you are a busy woman. You do all sorts of things, international lifestyle, business coaching, working on a book.
Yes.
Videos, everything, a podcast as well. So I just want to start from the beginning. What brought you to France? Like, tell us your story.
Well, I initially, when I came to Europe, I lived in England. And at the time I was a chef, and I was a chef in French fine dining. So my love affair with France started there. And I had read a series of books by Carol Drinkwater called The Olive Farm, about the south of France. And I fell in love with the south of France through those books. And several years later, I got the opportunity to go to Paris. And when that came up, I said yes right away. And from there, I worked my way down to the south, where I live now in between Marseille and Nyons.
It sounds dreamy. I mean, it does not sound like a bad life at all.
Yeah. Well, the story wasn't, it wasn't all, rose-colored glasses, but, it's definitely been a beautiful journey.
And so you started off as a chef, as a cook, like you had a love affair with food. And what made you like switch mediums? Like, I mean, creatives talk about this all the time, how they're like, feel like they can't do more than one medium, or is it bad? Or do you seem like you're all over the place? Like, do you feel that way? Like, do you think like changing our, theme for life is a bad thing, or our careers?
Well, I think, there's a term flying around now, like people who are multi-hyphenate, which means they have, several talents, and they use those talents at different seasons in their life, but when they do use them, they commit to them fully. So I would say that before I knew that term, that's what I was. Yeah. And I think when you're living abroad, you have to pivot all the time. And the nice thing about when you move to a new place or a new country, you get to actually try different things. It kind of gives you permission to tap into some different talents. When I stopped being a chef, when I was single when I had started, and it was a brutal industry. I worked 6 days a week. I worked 12, 14-hour days. And I was just exhausted. And when I had met my first husband and gotten married, I didn't want that lifestyle anymore. I wanted to change. And I'm like, well, cooking French food in France is not as glamorous as doing it in England, right? It's more exotic in England than it would be in France. So I said, it's a perfect time for me to give myself permission to try other things.
And how did you land on coaching? Like, what inspired you to start helping other people?
Well, when I moved to Paris, I had, I was learning French, so I didn't speak French when I came. And during that time, I had got a gig as a personal assistant for a woman from Australia. And she would kind of go back and forth a lot. So when she would leave, she would kind of, call over her friends and it's like, do you need a personal assistant or someone to help you? And I started by really organizing people and being personal assistants to people, but they would always kind of also address me with their life issues.
Hmm.
And I had turned that sort of part-time job into a business, sort of helping people and doing apartment management. And in the end, I had a business that I wasn't intentional in creating, but kind of was like a chia pet. It kept growing. and I, yeah, and I ended up like managing 50 apartments and offering personal assistance services to Anglophones and concierge services. I had like 7 employees, but I ended up in a career that still didn't feel complete for me. Like I liked helping people, and what I was doing, it wasn't deep enough. I
Hmm.
felt like I had more to offer and something that was more in line with what I was really giving my sort of signature clients, which was this personal attention to their lives and helping them improve their lives. So when my business was growing and one of my clients wanted to invest in the business to help me grow because there were other businesses wanting to subcontract my business for services, she sent me to a life coach because I
Wow.
wasn't sure that I wanted to continue that business anymore. She said, "Well, before, I invest, I want you to be sure that that this is what you want to continue to do." So she sent me to this life coach for 6 weeks, and at the end of the process, which lasted over a couple of months, I decided to sell the business. And I felt that I could do what she was doing, that it was sort of what I kind of was doing already, but with all of this stuff clouded around it.
Yeah.
And going through that process of a life coach, I discovered like really what my passion was. I understood the parts of my business that I loved and the parts of the business that I hated. And so when I cut off all the things I hated, I basically what was left was a life coach. And that's
Wow.
how I became a life coach.
I mean, that's a lot of steps to figure out what you love. I love that. It's like,
Yeah, yeah.
like we start as a chef, then we're running like a concierge, and then that happens a lot. I think, especially like everyone will, but in Paris, you hear that a lot. In France, like we all have these little like side jobs. We teach English, we do this, that,
Yeah.
until we reach, what we figure out what we want to do. Because I feel like France attracts a lot of lost souls, especially Paris. It's like all these lost people just trying to figure it out. So let's hang out. Why we do that.
Well, I think there's just a lot of lost souls in general. I mean, I think most people, we don't normally get the permission all the time to be exactly what we want to be. And then we're also not secure that what we want to be can earn us a living.
Yeah.
You may grow up in a system which doesn't, I think we grow up in a system where it doesn't actually make you investigate your passions. It's
Yeah.
something that is inside of you that keeps niggling and, in the back of your mind. And you may think this is a passion, not a profession. Or you may already have, ventured on a different type of career that gives you financial security, and stepping into that unknown, depending on what responsibilities you have, can seem impossible.
Yeah.
So the nice thing, like I said, about moving abroad is that it helps me cut the ties with like expectations of, say, where I came from or what I was doing before, because you're in a new place. And so it gave me the permission to explore different facets of myself without having to make any sort of explanation why, you know?
Yeah, I think that's really true because that's like when you come here, you don't have people who know you. You don't have people
Mm,
who are telling you who you're supposed to be. When you grow up
exactly.
with family, with friends from school, it's like they expect you to be this person they've always known. But
Mm.
when you step away from that, you can just maybe find yourself.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's why everybody, it's like those movies, you go off to India, meditate, and find yourself, And it's not necessarily India that's the thing. It's the space.
Yeah.
It's getting that space where people aren't pressuring you and you get to finally hear your own voice, and you give yourself permission to listen to it, and then to permission to actually try. You not may not be successful at everything you try, but that doesn't mean it's not worth trying.
And do you believe that all passions can be turned into professions? Like if you really want that?
Um, I'm not sure that all passions should be turned into professions because sometimes turning it into a business can crush it. That's happened to some people. Um, I think if you have a passion where if everything else you're doing and but you still just thinking about that, then that's probably like a calling, right?
Yeah.
I think people should live their purpose more than thinking about like what business should I create. It's more about if what you're doing makes you feel your life feel purposeful to you. If you always feeling that space of lack, like I'm really don't feel like I'm living my purpose, then you're probably not. And then you should go toward that calling to fulfill what you feel your purpose in this life is to do.
I like that. Yeah, because I think a lot of people feel like a slight hole, and sometimes they don't know even what that is, like
Mm.
fill it with food, they fill it with alcohol, they fill it with like going out,
Yeah.
like exploring. Maybe I'm just unhappy with what I'm doing, with
Yeah, exactly.
whatever. And since you work mostly with internationals, like what is some common themes that keep coming up that people have issues with or they need help with? What are like the common themes?
Well, I think it's part of what we're just talking about. It's they get that distance, like you said, from their family and their friends and all those old expectations. And they want to try something, but they don't know exactly.
Mhm.
Right. I work with a lot of sort of trailing spouses. So these are women who spend a lot of time just focusing on their family. And they haven't asked themselves in a very long time, who am I now? And what do I need now? And who do I want to be right now?
Yeah.
And how can I fit that person into this very busy life that I already have, taking care of, a tribe of people. And sometimes when you're just so busy with your responsibilities, you need someone to help you create the space and to show you how you can get on that route to exploring who you are without, putting yourself in crises or your family in crises, and to help you to explore those talents, give you things to do to see where that could lead, and what are the paths that I could take to get to this vision of what I have for the life that I want, and then to do it slowly in steps that feel safe. um, a lot of people just want to feel safe. They Risk scares them,
Yeah.
and so my job as a coach is basically to help you to make a calculated risk that you understand. If you take this risk, these are the things that could happen. These are the challenges. This is the sort of down things that you need to prepare yourself for, so that even when it does happen, you have a cushion around you, and that you not living in crises. Like some people will just quit their job and be like, oh, I'm going to do this. And then if that thing isn't working out immediately, they feel like they're making a mistake. So I kind of gear people away from that to make sort of, you know, transitions that, because their lifestyle has to catch up with the transition as well.
Yeah.
Because not everybody is prepared for the new vision you may have for your life. And you may not even be prepared. So I think it's really, helping people grow into that transition that they want to make, and making sure that, like I said, they have that cushion around them. So while they're taking risks, they still feel protected.
I think that's great advice because, like you said, a lot of people it's like all or nothing. It's like I'm just gonna quit
Yeah.
job and I'm gonna find a home and and it's like I like the idea of you like saying, okay, this is what the bad that's gonna happen, and these are the steps that you could do.
Yeah.
Um, it makes it a little more doable. And what about people like all the time? I have people like my customers or people online, social media, the highlights roll. They're like, I want to move to Paris. You're living my dream. No, no, no. Like, what would you say to those people? Like, there's probably a lot more going on than like, oh yeah, you're just going to move to France. Your life is going to be great. Like, we know there's a lot more.
Yeah, there's a lot more to it. Well, the first thing I do with people is we start with a self-assessment, right? First, I think before you go and make a huge decision like that, is to understand what is actually driving that desire.
Hmm.
Like, could you fulfill that where you are, you know, or you think the place is going to create who you want to be? And to understand, where's the lack first? Why do you feel like a life in Paris would be so much better than your life where you are?
Yeah.
Right. I think a lot of people project onto places uh, sort of things that they're missing inside of themselves, and they think that place, it's just like a relationship, right? You think this person's going to complete me, or if I lived there I would be doing this. And that's not necessarily true if you don't actually understand where that desire is coming from, and if your expectations about where you're going is actually going to meet that desire. So we go through that assessment, and we really look to make sure that what you're actually expecting actually exists wherever it is you're searching for it. And if and to make sure that it's not something you need to give yourself first before you go on that adventure, so that you don't have those disappointments, when people get to Paris and they realize how hard it is,
Hmm.
and that hard learning curve when you don't know the language, you don't know the culture, you're having a hard time finding work, you're going through the ups and downs of visas. You really need to have a sense of purpose and belief in yourself to make it through all of that.
Yeah.
Um, and so I try to make sure people establish that before they take that jump. And also, to, like I said, I'm sort of a realistic coach. I mean, I'm positive and mindfulness and all of that, but I also pull the curtain down on illusions, and to
Hmm.
make sure that you really, really dug deep into what it is you're asking for, and to make sure you're prepared for it. Because, they always say, be careful what you ask for. You might get it. You just might get it. So I
Yeah.
make people really make that assessment to say, are you prepared for what you're asking for?
Yeah, and I think what you said about like, could we have what we want where we already are? I think that's really true because, we take our problems with us. So,
Mm,
you got to do some self work to figure it out before, you throw something away that might be really great wherever you are already.
yeah. And you might be able to establish it first there in a place where you have more support.
Yeah.
And then you can just grow it where you're going, right? And you're
Yeah.
not scrambling to learn the language, meet the people, do this, do that, and start a new career. Like, that's a lot of pressure
Yeah.
to do all of those things at once. So I try to get people started first wherever they are, and really, so that when they come here, they're not trying to define themselves at the same time, that they kind of have a foundation to grow off of, instead of trying to figure out where to put their foundation, that they have that foundation inside themselves first, and
Mhm.
that way they can blossom wherever it is that they decide to go.
And do you find that most people think that change and risk are actually the same thing? Like, do they associate them as the same thing?
um I'm not sure people think that far always, you
Mhm.
know? I think when you get into a place of desperation, you're like, yes, I want change.
Yeah.
And you just want to cut, right? You just want to cut your old life. You cut that old job, cut the old people, cut all of this, cut, 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 cut. But when you cut things off, there's also open wounds. And I
Mhm.
think people don't think about that
Yeah.
cutting all of these things, whether you want to get rid of them or not, are still things that are very familiar to you. And once you cut them off and you go into something new, you go into kind of a flight or flight mode. Your whole consciousness is in like survival. Like, this is not familiar. I don't know what this is. This is not safe. And you may not even be taking a risk, but it feels like it, because your whole consciousness is not comfortable with all of these new things. So I really try to educate people about, when we cut things, we do have open wounds, and that takes time to heal before we can start on that new journey. Um, yeah.
I think that's great advice because, like you said, we're all carrying around our open wounds and things like that. And do you think that it's good to become comfortable with the uncomfortable because that's life, that's expat life, or is it more so like you ease your way into it?
Well, I think it's good to push yourself outside of your comfort zone, But I don't think just because you do that, you always have to be uncomfortable.
Mhm.
I think you can push yourself outside of your comfort zone with support,
Yeah.
right? So even if you are taking that risk and you're still supported, and that feels that's something totally different. I think a lot of people think when they say push yourself out of your comfort zone that you need to just do it all on your own and not ask for help, and you should be able to figure it all out. And that's not what pushing yourself out of your comfort zone means. It
Mhm.
just means learning how to do something different that you've never done before.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I don't think that that always has to be uncomfortable.
And do you have like, I know this is kind of a big question, but like, are there right reasons for making a big change or a big move? Like, is there a certain position that you should be in before you make like a giant change, like moving to a foreign country?
Well, right and wrong is relative. I think what I may subjectively think is right may be totally different in someone else's opinion. So I guess no, there's no right way. I think it's your way. I
Yeah.
think it's the way that feels the most in line with who you are.
Yeah.
Then that's the best position to be in, because to do all the things that you may want to do, you have to have really a foundation of self belief. So if you're in line with your decisions, you believe in those decisions, and you're more likely to stick with them when the challenges and the difficult things arrive, because you have this deep belief in what you're doing, because you're totally in line with it. So I would say just try to get in line with your vision or your desires or wants, um, before you embark on that journey. It'll be a lot less painful that way.
And when you say get in line with your visions, I mean, so many people, creatives, artists, business owners, whoever, we all have this like imposter syndrome like,
Mm.
am I good enough? Do I deserve this? So, how do you get in line with that? Because so many people, even when they're super famous, like
Mm.
know what they do, they still have this imposter syndrome. So, how do you get in line with that?
Well, like I said, is doing that inner work. You have to understand, w- because there's some people, like you say, they could be great at what they do, and no matter what anybody tells them, or no matter how many rewards or how much money they earn, they still have that insecurity. That's coming from something deeper within inside of them. And
Hmm.
that's why I say it's important to understand where the pain is coming from that's making you want change.
Yeah.
Because once I know that, then I can start working on healing that so that it doesn't affect the change I want to make in a negative way. Because if I have low self-esteem and I don't take care of that, first I don't find out when did that started, where did that came from, and if I don't start to just to address that in some way, that's going to follow me even if I realized everything that I dreamed of. That's low self-esteem, if I never took care of it, will always exist.
Yeah. No, it's all about like our childhood and our trauma.
Not necessarily. Sometimes we traumatize ourselves in our adulthood, you know.
On this one at all ages, guys. Just hold on.
Exactly.
And as a business coach, do you have advice for creatives in particular, like people who are choosing an artistic business or something like that? Is there something you would say to them as a business coach?
Well, with artists, the usual thing, or I would say one of the common threads that I find with artists is that they tend to be ungrounded.
Mm,
They have so many ideas and so many passions, which are beautiful. And where they kind of get stuck in the road is they don't um, they don't like the back office.
yeah,
They don't like the business side. They just want to create. They just want that's what they say, well, I just want to make my music, or I just want to paint. I just want to do this. I don't want to have to do this and this and that. They don't like the self-promoting. They don't like the marketing. They don't like charging, exuberant prices. And so my job when I work with artists is helping them to understand how even doing all of those things is part of the creative process.
mhm,
They are not separate, and you do not have to be a master at all of them. but knowing that what you need to be successful in what you do is important, so you know what to outsource, right? If you're bad at admin, but to sell your paintings, you still need someone who's going to email the galleries, who's going to track your payments, who's going to help you organize the next expedition by sending out letters and making a press release for yourself and all of those things. If those are not your strong points, you at least need to know what you need so that
Mhm.
you can outsource it, so that you can just focus on your art. And you do need to know how much money you need to earn, so that the lack of finances doesn't make your art suffer, because that's another thing that happens a lot with artists, is that they get in these financial precarious situations and then they can't focus on their art because they need money.
Yeah.
So then they have to take a job that they don't like, which taps on to their creativity, and then they stop creating. And it's kind of like a vicious cycle.
Mhm.
So is moving, I try to move creators to really understand the importance of having a good financial outlook about money, because creatives tend to have a really adverse relationship with money. And I try to move that mindset, and to really let them understand it's just an exchange of energy. Artists put in a lot of work giving us whatever beauty it is that they have to offer. Paintings take a long time. Writing, producing, editing music takes a long time. Artists, they pour themselves into this work, and they have to understand how to value all of that effort.
Mhm. Yeah, that comes up a lot, especially when I interview painters or sculptors. They're like,
Mm,
I don't know what to charge for this. Like, how do I
right.
even do pricing? And,
Yeah.
it goes back to having, not the self esteem and but exactly like, and also a lot of, I mean, people in general are scattered. We love a lot of different things. It's like, I want to be a painter, sculptor, writer,
Mm.
podcaster. And like, how do you help people zero in on one thing, or should they even zero in on one thing?
Well, it's like what I was saying before. There's a lot of artists are normally like multi hyphenates. They have different talents, and so it's just I try to get them to understand that everything has a season, and all those seasons don't come at once,
Yeah.
right? So it's just like when you give birth to a baby, it's not going to go from 3 months to 18 years old all in one day, right? You have to nurture your dream, you have to water it, you have to let it grow, and it's going to be in a delicate phase, and then it's going to be a bit stronger. And I think when that idea is strong enough and it's standing on its own and it has good roots, that's the time where you can start branching out to other things, and then let each branch get its own strength and its own leaves and its own flowers, and then you can have another branch. So it's just not to it's like over watering a plant. If you do that, it'll just die because it's just waterlogged. The roots start to mildew and they start to rot because you're just putting too much on it.
Yeah.
So I just try to, use that sort of analogy with people to help them understand that you can do all of these things, but you have to get some roots in the ground first.
I think that's called burnout when you overwater your plant.
Yeah. Or self-destructiveness,
Yeah,
either one.
I think that's fantastic advice because that comes up a lot. And what would you say to people who don't think they're creative, who don't think they have any talents, or trying to figure out what they are good at, what they are passionate about? What advice would you give to them?
I would give them start with the artist way. I'm doing the artist way myself at the moment, and I think I always knew I had other creative things I wanted to do, and I had the same issue because I like to do different things. Like you say, I have a YouTube channel, I have a podcast, I'm a coach, I like to write articles. So I have all of these different creative things in me, and my business and logical self took a big space. And I gave my passions a little bit of water, but not as much as I think I really wanted to when I first started off, in my career and moving abroad. I was always focused on stability. So I think the Artist Way is a great sort of 12-week way to help you sort of get to who that creative person is inside of you. And I think the second thing is, don't shut that voice that's calling for your attention.
Mm,
So if you inside of you have a craving to wake up and go take photos, don't shut that off. Even if you do it for 5 minutes, it helps to give that creative thing space,
yeah.
and so that you can see what's inside of you. It's just like sitting a child in the corner and telling him to be quiet, and it keeps wanting your attention, and it just starts misbehaving to get your attention. And I think that's what your passions will do as well. If you shut them off, it'll basically, that those other passionate voices inside you will start to eat away at whatever else you're doing. You won't feel as whole. You won't feel as purposeful. You'll feel like something is lacking, and that this is so great, but for some reason it's just not enough. And
Mhm.
that's because there's other parts of you that want to be filled up. So I think when we're feeling a sense of lack, and we're not giving those small voices that already have those small voices that are niggling at us attention, follow those voices.
Yeah. They call them the whispers, the creative whispers.
The creative whispers.
Yeah. I started the Artist Way and I'm so all over the place. I didn't finish it. So I need to commit. I need to get grounded.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Mundey. I feel like we learned so much during this episode. And where can people connect with you online?
So everything, I keep it simple. My everything is Mundey Young Coaching. You go on Facebook, Mundey Young Coaching, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. Everything is Mundey Young Coaching. YouTube. You tap that in anywhere, you'll find me.
Perfect. And we'll put that in the show notes too, guys. So check them out. You can click on her link. Mundey is an amazing coach. She can help you get grounded, figure it out. So reach out to her, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you, Crystal.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning in to La Vie Creative. You can find more information on MissParisPhoto.com. And if you enjoyed this show, please feel free to share and spread the word for all my creative guests. We have the power to help them to keep doing what they love. See you next time.